Welcome, everybody, to the CFL Weekly Pick'em Show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. The CFL Weekly Pick'em Show is brought to you by BetNow.eu for a 50% cash back bonus on your first deposit up to $1,000. Make sure you go to BetNow.eu, use the promo code Truth50, or go to thegruelingtruth.com. Click on the banner at the top of the page. Put in the promo code Truth50. I am your co-host for the CFL Weekly Show, Mike Goodpaster, and right now I want to welcome in my co-host. First up, we've got Brian Schmidt, who is tell me if I get this right, Brian, the Vice President of Business for the Carolina Cobras, who play in the National Arena League Championship game this weekend.
Yes, we do, and I actually went back to also coaching this weekend. I let them all do the hard work during the regular season, then I just came back and I just come back for the fun part.
So you're like the trainer that just shows up once the guy's won the title?
Pretty much, yeah.
All right. And, of course, we have our resident legend. And that doesn't mean he's an old man. It just means it's been a little while since he played. Help me welcome to the show, Robert Drummond. How you doing, Robert?
Doing pretty good. You know, I'm telling you, every time I hear legend, it just makes me seem like my sons always say, "You're old, Dad."
You know what, though? It's better than me just introducing you as the old CFL running back, Robert Drummond. You got to admit that.
Well, you're absolutely right. I guess it's better then.
Yeah, so we're rolling with legend. You know, I'm telling you, I don't think, Brian, if I was to call you the legendary Brian Schmidt, would you complain about it?
I thought that's what you usually did.
No, I don't. But there was a guy in Owensboro who wrote in a newspaper article that we were legends.
I know. I thought that's what you and I always went off of.
I know. I gotta pull up that article too. It's somewhere buried in the internet, and we gotta pull that up, and I'll repost that. All right, guys. We had another interesting week in the CFL, and we're gonna start it off in Winnipeg, where the Calgary Stampeders went to Winnipeg. A pair of punt return touchdowns from Grant lifted because I'm going to screech, so I think it's Janarian. Grant lifted Winnipeg Blue Bombers to a 26-24 win over the Calgary Stampeders. This is a huge win, I think, Robert, just because Winnipeg, in past situations like this, halfway or later into the season playing Calgary, it usually didn't work out well.
Yeah, that's a huge win. I remember seeing parts of the game, and I was like, wow. You know, at this point, you know, what confidence builder, you know, late in the season. You know, but I like Winnipeg as a team, you know, but what a big win for them at this point in this stage against a Calgary team that's usually going late into the season, you know, as I should say.
Yeah, and we look at this game, Brian. It tells us, number one, how good Calgary is. It tells us how good Winnipeg is. These are probably, if they're not the two best teams, they're two of the best teams. And the thing that stands out, difference in this teams right here, would be Nick Arbuckle played all right, but he turned the ball over twice. Calgary did not have any success running the ball. And when you look at Winnipeg, Matt Nichols, 18 for 22. No touchdowns, 177 yards, but Andrew Harris, 19 carries, 100 yards. Once again, this is a complete football team.
Absolutely. And really, what a really great game this was. In two really competitive teams, two really good teams that are complete on both sides of the ball. And this was a battle. This was really what you like to see in the CFL, and that is two really good teams, a really competitive game that goes, into the fourth quarter like this. And so, really, I thought this was a great way to start the week off, to be honest with you. I just thought this was a really fun game.
Yeah, and Robert, we talk about a complete team, and when we talk about that, most people think offense and defense. Really, right here, running the ball on special teams. Justin Medlock, 4 for 4 on field goal attempts. Janarian Grant, seven returns, 222 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's special for the special teams.
Yeah, people don't realize that special teams, the impact it plays on any football sporting event. You know, we always say it's one third of basically how you can score points. You know, offense, defense, special teams, and what a huge day for Winnipeg, and the special teams department, and it's just like you practice that so much, during the week, and when it pays off, it's dividends. Everyone takes special teams for light. Go out there and punt the ball, change your possession, change the field, making field goals, extra points, a rouge, which a lot of people are, in Canada, they all know. In the United States, they're like, what is that? But punt returns, kickoff returns, it's just such a big impact it makes on the game. And it's something that really makes a difference in a lot of games, and people need to understand it and start respecting it a lot more.
Yeah, I was going to make a rude comment to Schmidt about how Schmidt thinks the rouge is what he puts on before he goes out drinking after a game.
Yeah, that was really been a rude comment.
All right, let's go.
I didn't say it wasn't true, but it is true.
Yeah, but in Schmidt's defense, he's even liquored up before he goes out, so he doesn't even know what's going on. That's why if they beat the Jacksonville Sharks Saturday night, it's hard to tell him. We'll probably get a picture in a tutu drinking a Jack and Coke.
Oh yeah.
A pair of defensive touchdowns led the Saskatchewan Roughriders to a 17-10 road win against the Montreal Alouettes on Friday night in a weather-shortened game. The Riders improved their record to 5-3, are now just one game behind division-leading Winnipeg. The game was called early during the third quarter, in accordance with the league's weather protocol after lightning in the area delayed the game for over an hour. What do you think of this rule number one, Robert?
Controversial game. A lot of people were complaining about it, but they went by the rules. It stinks. As a player, because it's such a close game. At any given point, Montreal could have came back and possibly won a game, but it's like it's you have to go by the rules. It stinks, but you can't take a chance with the safety of the players during situations like that in weather, especially lightning. Lightning strikes the field, it can kill all the players, So I agree with the call, but it stinks it stinks to lose like that.
Yeah, and Brian, once again, Cody Fajardo played well, 15 for 21, 166 yards. Also ran the ball for 8 yards per carry, 6 for 88. This Saskatchewan team is quietly becoming a Grey Cup contender, I think.
Yeah, they really are. They play good defense, efficient on offense, and that's what you need to have. But I will also say this, and with the rule being what it is, and whether you agree or disagree, I mean they're going to go by the rule. But I also have to say, this Montreal team is starting to win me over a little bit. Quarterback injuries, injury issues overall, and defensively, they stuck around. Obviously the game was short, and we don't know what the fourth quarter and the rest of the third would have been like, but they stuck around. This was an interesting game, in not so much because of the weather, but just because Saskatchewan, I think there's a lot of things you can look at with them that I think you can look at them as a team as the season goes on. Could be a very dangerous team in the playoffs, and I don't know that we can continue to make fun of Montreal anymore, because they're starting to show to be a very good football team.
Yeah, and when we look at Montreal, Robert, this is a team that was absolutely atrocious at the start of the season. They've turned it around. They had little quarterback play as they're missing their starter, Vernon Adams. And we talked about special teams here and how special teams can affect the game. Defense and special teams kept them in this game, because when your punter, Boris Beatty, 5 punts, 227 yards. He had a net average of like 43 yards per punt, which when your offense is in trouble and your defense plays well, a performance like that keeps you in a game and gives you a chance to win.
Changing a field position is huge in games, and you're right. Montreal's found their identity. They were atrocious at the beginning of the season, but they found themselves, and that makes for a dangerous team, because any given day, a team like that has found their identity and found who they are, and they're playing well. Maybe not enough to win in a situation like this, but enough to be able to put themselves in a situation to win games. They can be dangerous.
All right, next up, we got C.J. Gable runs for 116 yards and 2 touchdowns as the Edmonton Eskimos came out on top with a 16-12 home victory against the Ottawa Red Blacks on Friday night. And Gable gave the Eskimos an early lead by scoring a touchdown on his longest rush of the season, but a field goal from Lewis Ward brought the Red Blacks close before Dominic Davis helped Ottawa grab the lead with a 67-yard touchdown pass to Dominic Rhymes just before the second quarter. This, as all the games this week were, this was a great game, Brian. This was more of a defensive battle. But I think the difference in this game, Trevor Harris played well, and C.J. Gable played great.
Yeah. I mean, Trevor Harris, 33 of 40, 327 yards, no turnovers. Again, efficient. Gable, runs the ball over 100 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. They played efficient on offense, and their defense played well. Even though Dominic Davis did not play a bad game, but the big difference is 2 interceptions, and that in a close game, that's usually going to be the difference.
Yeah, and I think the one thing we can say about Otto here is I don't think it's so much they played poorly. I just think they lost to a team that was a little bit better than them here, Robert. But John Crockett, 13 carries for 89 yards. He could be big for them this season if he can continue to run like that.
I'm convinced Ottawa's jinxed. We've been saying this for years now. I mean, this team, granted, great game. It's just they can't seem to get themselves over the hump to push themselves into the elite echelon football team. It's just they always seem to find a way to lose games that may be minuscule, in the bigger picture, but mean a lot in the bigger picture, if you know what I mean. This team, this franchise is just an enigma to me. All the talent in the world, but they just can't seem to get over the hump to put themselves in that elite academy. It's just it's there for them to take, but they have no idea how to grasp it and run with it.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter who the quarterback is; they still don't know.
No, doesn't.
Yeah, but Trevor Harris has figured it out by going to a different team.
Yeah, I mean, great move by him. It's a great job, great quarterback. He's efficient. That doesn't make mistakes. A quarterback's job is just to manage the game and not lose it for him. That's what because Don Matthews used to always tell. Whether I played with Doug Flutie or whether I played with Tracy Ham or whether I played with Damon Allen, 3 CFL Hall of Famers, but they were always told to just not lose the game, just be efficient. And and I always took a step back and I thought about that and I was like, wow, he's absolutely right. Let your players win the game for you. You don't have to go out there and try and win the game. So and it always interested me and it made me take a step back and think about the game of football and why teams won and why teams lost. Look at wins and losses and why when a quarterback throws interceptions or he has fumbles or he doesn't manage the game, they lose. When the quarterback goes out there, he's efficient, doesn't have to have all the passing yards in the world, but he's just efficient down the field, a great completion percentage. They win. So I was like, wow, statistics works.
Yeah, especially turnovers. The Hamilton Tiger Cats completed a spectacular fourth-quarter comeback against the BC Lions on Saturday night, coming out on top in the final moments with a 35-34 win. I want to go here with you, Robert. Brandon Banks made his return from injury, led the way with 9 catches, 137 yards, 2 touchdowns, including a 23-yard score with a minute left that put Hamilton in position to win the game. My question to you is this. Brandon Banks, right now, is he the most outstanding player for this season so far?
Another body of work like this last game, I'd agree. Yes, what a stand-up performance in that situation to put your team in a position to win the game, and just put it on your shoulders. That takes a lot of courage inside as a player because a lot of players. The fray from being the target, in situations like that of being, say it's, third down, and 3 yards and they're throwing you a pass. A lot of guys get nervous and don't want the ball thrown to them. But to stand up in a position like that shows what a true leader is, and that's what you want to see, especially in the game of football. And it makes you think the type of player Banks is, just one of those elite caliber type players who, once the ball in his possession, you'd be able to put his team on his back and ride with them. It was interesting to watch.
All right, now, Brian, when we look at this game from Hamilton's perspective, you got to be kind of disappointed. You gave up 34 points to BC, but Mike Riley played well. Difference in this game, like the other ones, Mike Riley threw 2 picks. Dane Evans didn't. Dane Evans has played really well filling in for Jeremiah Masoli, but with Dane Evans at the quarterback right now, how seriously do you take the Ticats?
You know, on paper, you shouldn't be taking him seriously, but he continues to play well, and as long as he's playing well, and again, a lot of it is something that we've touched on is efficiency. 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. You put the ball in the hands of Brandon Banks, you know things are going to happen. So they're playing to their strengths, and I think that makes, as long as they're doing those things, that's going to make them a dangerous team. But on the flip side, Mike Riley, I mean, he did play well to an extent, but again, like you said, the 2 interceptions were the killer, and I think that's, something right now with BC is even when he plays well, there's still enough mistakes that they just can't get over the hump, and we're seeing that right now with BC.
All right, guys, so we're talking about BC. Let's go ahead and look at this week's games as the BC Lions will travel to Winnipeg. And we get a showdown to begin the week between the first and last place teams in the standings. Winnipeg and BC met up in the opening game 2019 season in BC, where Winnipeg took the contest by a 33-23 score. Andrew Harris ran for 148 yards. I like Winnipeg here. Everybody agree?
I like Winnipeg. I mean, BC, yep. I mean, just has too many things. I mean, I read an article somewhere where there's an outside investor interested in buying the BC Lions, from Braley, and I'm just like, that's just a distraction. There's just too many things going on outside of football in BC, and it's a distraction. I mean, I like Winnipeg.
All right, Brian?
Yeah, I like Winnipeg as well.
All right, next up, interesting game now, much more interesting because of what happened 2 weeks ago, Edmonton at Toronto. This is a rematch of a game that Edmonton flexed its defensive muscles in last time out, shutting out the Argonauts. They got 4 sacks, 3 interceptions, and a forced fumble in the process. Toronto is coming off a bye week, but they won their last game against Winnipeg in Week 8, and they got James Wilder back on the practice field. And they also made a trade to start the week, acquiring defensive lineman Devin Coleman and a pick from BC for Sean Lemon. Toronto got any chance here, Brian?
Yeah, I mean they got a chance, but I don't know how much. I'll go with Edmonton.
Now I'm reading about this game, Robert, and they say they're expecting a packed house in Toronto. What's going on?
You can expect a lot. I expect to win the lottery every time I play.
No, it do. It's right here. Edmonton is 1-3 on the road this season, and with a packed house expected in Toronto. Do they have Robert Drummond bobblehead night?
Hey, I don't know, maybe, but I'm still going with Edmonton. I just, as much as I like Wilder, the efficiency that that they're trying to improve upon in Toronto they're just a lost organization right now. They haven't found themselves, and it's not going to happen until next year. So,
hey, if they can somehow win this game, they're still in it in the East.
Anything can happen. That's why you show up and play the game. Nothing matters on paper. You show up and play the game. We were a dominant team when I played with that Flutie all the time, but we still had to go out there and play the game. And these teams played us hard, so because we were the more elite team. So this game has to still be played. But if I look at the advantages, the Xing and Oing, plus and minuses, pros and cons, you have to go Edmonton.
All right, now Saturday we'll start with a big game, has big implications in the East. Hamilton is unquestionably the top team in the division right now, following their win in Week 9. They're currently sitting at 6-2. Dane Evans had his coming out party against the Lions, tossing 230 yards, 2 touchdowns. The Red Blacks, on the other hand, have dropped 5 of their last 6 games. The game is in Ottawa, Robert. What do you think?
The game's in Ottawa. they're a Jekyll and Hyde team, but I'm gonna go with Ottawa this week. I just have a feeling they're gonna find themselves and just put something together because their team they're an enigma. Some weeks they're aloof. Other weeks are like, wow, this team could vie for a championship. But I'm gonna go with them this week.
All right, I'm going to agree with Robert, Brian. I'm going with Ottawa. I think John Crockett will have a big game. I think Ottawa will win this in a close battle.
I am going to go with Hamilton.
What the hell do you know? Well, let's talk about the next game now. Go ahead, Brian.
I can't jump on that Ottawa wagon on this one, so I'll go ahead and take Hamilton. But I wouldn't be surprised if you guys are right, but I'm not going to put my money on Ottawa.
All right, next up, we've got, to wrap up the week, we get an interdivisional clash between the Stampeders and the Alouettes. To me, this is probably a no-brainer. I mean, Adams returned to practice on Tuesday. Any chance here, Brian? I mean, Montreal, I think, is going to be in this game. I think the question is, are we going to see Bo Levi Mitchell this week? Because it looks like we are.
Yeah, I think we will. And I feel like this is going to be a decent game. I think 4 or 5 weeks ago we would have looked at this and laughed. And I think Montreal will keep it a little bit closer. But in the end, I mean, it's Calgary, and I think Calgary will win this game. But you just can't discount Montreal anymore.
Yeah. I'm going to go with Calgary, but I do think this will be a closer game than would the odds makers say, which Calgary is favored by anywhere from 7 to 9 points. What do you think, Robert?
I think it'll be a close game also, but I just think Calgary, just their pedigree and type of thing there, even with Bo Levi Mitchell's return, and just him playing the game and just Montreal, I mean, what a great turnaround from the beginning of the year, how they're playing now. But I just think this game doesn't get them over the hump, and Calgary just flexes their muscle and shows you the type of not just team but organization they are, and they win this game. It'll be close, but Calgary will win.
All right. Well, the one good thing is, at least the last couple weeks, especially this last week, we didn't have any one-sided ass whoopings. It seems like everything's kind of evening out, maybe a little bit more. So I think this season, we're in for a great finish to this season. Any final thoughts, Robert?
It's never how you start. It's always how you finish, and that's the one thing in football. You can be a dominant team at the beginning of the season, but then peter out as we say, toward the end of the season and absolutely accomplish nothing. So as teams start to gel and come together and learn one another, and start to play great football, that comes now, and it's starting to show. The teams that are starting to play great football and get those signature wins, winning by 1 point, winning by 2 points, close games, winning by special teams, it makes a big difference, not in just the play, but just the mentality of the players going into it, knowing that there's three facets of winning football games. There's offense, there's defense, there's special team. If you can control all three of those facets, you can become a dominant team. And I think these teams now are starting to understand themselves and put themselves in position to be successful heading into the Grey Cup.
All right. Almost forgot your name, Brian. Any final thoughts, Brian?
I forget my name all the time. No, I think what Robert said. I think really hits it home. But I'll tell you, I think it's going to be an interesting next 3 or 4 weeks to just start to see some of these teams. Let's see if they're for real. Montreal is Montreal for real. Are we going to see Ottawa ever show that they can be more than a Jekyll and Hyde? Those are the things that I think are going to get interesting, and how does Edmonton play? Because Edmonton at times can look very good, other times not so much. So where are they going to be? So I think it's time to really start to see some of the nuts and bolts of the CFL and where we're going to be come playoff time.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up for this week. We'll be back next Wednesday night at 9 o'clock. You can hear Inside Boxing Daily tonight at 11:30 on thegruelingtruth.com. And I want to remind you to check out our sponsor, betnow.eu, where you can use the promo code TRUTH50 to get a 50% cash back bonus on your first deposit up to $1,000. All right, guys, that's it for tonight. Remember, you can hear all of our shows on iHeartRadio, Spotify, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher. Wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Brian Schmidt, Robert Drummond, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.